How to deal with constantly feeling overwhelmed. An article on Harvard Business Review by Rebecca Zucker. Rebecca Zucker in this article talks about something very interesting. The fact that right now, with the new advancements in technology, the way that the world is evolving, it is evolving at such a fast pace that our minds haven't really matched the complexity of the world out there. And this causes major problems for us. We have all these new technologies bombarding us with new information on a daily basis. But when was the last time that you received any training in how to deal with these technologies, on how to better organize and prepare and be aware of the impact of these technologies on you and your ability to cognitively survive in this world? Well, we haven't. And that creates the sense that we feel overwhelmed. And more, because of these technologies, because now you can have information anywhere you are at any time, we feel that we have to respond all the time. We feel that we have this incredible amount of responsibility, always having to respond to things, always having to be present, always having to be active. That creates a sense of being overwhelmed. And think about the word overwhelmed. When we are overwhelmed, we think that we are drowning. We are drowning in a world of information. We are drowning in things that we need to do and we can't get done, or we feel absolutely without air, trying to gasp for air, trying to always get away from a stage in which we are being buried by something. You're always trying to escape that truck of sand that is being thrown on top of you. That is just not a way to live. That is the opposite of a flourishing life, but it's very much how we feel nowadays. So she talks about how some individuals feel that they always have to respond to emails, that their to-do lists are always growing, that because the company is growing, they have this the sense that they are constantly working. There's a lot that is happening in our professional lives, in our student lives, and we have to be able to respond to that. One of the things that I have talked about in the past is what makes us feel this feeling of being overwhelmed. It's a cognitive state. It's a way of thinking about the world. It's a scarcity mentality. And there are three things that we focus as not being available to us. So one is the availability of time. When you feel overwhelmed, you're giving a project, for example, and you feel that you have no time in this world to finish that project. The other one is the sense that we have no control over our environment. And if we don't have control over the present, of course, we have no control over the future. And that certainly makes us feel that we are that we are drowning. And then it's this false sense that we have no support. So again, feeling overwhelmed is this false sense that we don't have enough time, that we don't have control over the surrounding world around us, and that we have no support. What are the consequences? The cognitive impact of feeling that way, particularly for a long period of time, can be very detrimental to us and to our health. It can cause mental slowness, forgetfulness, confusion, difficulty concentrating or thinking logically, a mind that is always racing, trying to solve problems, and that causes cognitive fatigue. And what happens is that when you are cognitively fatigued, we tend to be more prone to distractions and not think as fast as we could. Just think about it. When you're being overloaded with information, what the brain tries to do is to go into paths that are not as demanding. So instead of focusing on the work that you have to get done, you end up doing things that are completely mindless. That's why we find ourselves sometimes when we are feeling overwhelmed or we have a very difficult task in front of us, we go and we find ourselves scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or etc. Why? Because it's a way for the mind just to escape. It's escapism. It's escapism at its best. And in a world where you already feel overwhelmed, you think you have no control, no time, well, escaping is probably not the best response, right? So we want to make sure that we have responses that are adaptive and not maladaptive to the situation at hand. So what can we do about that? Here are her tips. First is pinpoint the primary source of overwhelm. One of the questions that she suggests is, what are one of two things that, if taken off your plate, would alleviate 80% of the stress that you feel right now? So I will repeat that. What are one or two things that, if you just eliminated them from your life, would eliminate the stress that you feel right now. And the point here, and when I first read this, I had, well, what is she saying? That we just should eliminate the things that causes stress? This is not what she's saying at all. She's saying that this is the way to pinpoint what the stress are. So when you think about these two things that you would, if you would eliminate, you wouldn't feel as stressed. So those are the things that are causing you overwhelmed. Now what we can do, now that we know what are the main things that are causing you to feel overwhelmed, now we can see, okay, do we have, and why is it causing us to be overwhelmed? Do we have the right time? Do we have control over it? What kind of control do we have over it? And do we have support? Can we find support to try to solve this problem? So if it's a project that's overwhelming you and you can, just try to finish it. Or if it's just a project that is too big, too large, or a class that you're thinking that is too big, too large, break it into small components. So by pinpointing what it is, then you can actually do something about it. Set boundaries on your time and workload. And this does not mean that, I'm going to set boundaries and whatever my boss asks of me, I'm going to say no because I am just overwhelmed. No, that's not how businesses operate. But what you can say, it's time boxing. You're going to say that every morning, like I have repeated in many of my videos, from let's say 7 in the morning until 9 a.m., I'm going to work in this particular project. So all of a sudden you have control. One thing that you thought you didn't have control over, and that is time and time allocation, resources allocation during a period of time. So you know that every morning you're going to be working for a whole week, or perhaps for a whole month or a couple of weeks, you're going to be working on that project non-stop. And that in itself already gives you a sense of relief. Once I had to write a report, and the way that I did it, I made sure that later in the day, from after 4 o'clock, so I would get everything that I needed to get done during that day until 4 p.m. Then from 4 to about 7 p.m., I would just stay in my office focusing on that particular project. The report was submitted on time and with high quality. Why? Because I made sure that every day I had those hours available to me. Everything else had to fall from, let's say, 7 or 8 in the morning until 4 p.m. After 4 p.m., it was all focused on that project. But why do I like also starting early with these very important projects? Because by 4 p.m. you're already kind of tired, right? So you want to perhaps start early in the morning from 7 to 9 or 7 to 10, because then you know you're going to have the energy to deal with that. Also, set up a time. Say, by a certain time, I'm going to leave my office and I'm going to go or my studies, and I'm going to go and I'm going to exercise. But you're setting boundaries, and those boundaries will actually help you become more focused. Challenge your perfectionism. Perfectionism leads us to think that certain things are more important than they actually are. Know when good enough is good enough, and let it be, let it go. Remember that done is better than perfect. Often driven by perfectionism, we want to deliver something that is absolutely flawless, that is absolutely beautiful, and it's in its final form. There is nothing more that can be added or taken away from that final product we want to put out. But guess what? Sometimes that is just insecurity masked as perfectionism. Remember that sometimes just putting something out there in the world is more important, even more efficient than trying to deliver the perfect product. Because as you put it out there in the world will react to it, and based on the reaction, you can actually improve it. By trying to deliver something that is absolutely perfect, you're making yourself a disservice, and you're feeling that sense of overwhelmness because you're imposing standards that are so high that you just can never achieve them. So be careful. Remember that we cannot control everything. Remember that we cannot be in charge of everything, that sometimes we have to delegate, sometimes we have to let it go. It's okay if not every email is answered 5 seconds after you have received them. It's okay if sometimes you renegotiate a deadline. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to do everything perfectly. We have to negotiate. We have to negotiate deadlines. We have to negotiate with our bosses. Sometimes we have to negotiate with ourselves. So, this time I think this is good enough. I'll just let it be. Remember that you have the time, you have control, and you have the resources that you need, and you have the support as well. And that's the next advice here, is to outsource or delegate. And the question that the author asks us here is, what is the highest and best use of your time? So think about that. What is the highest and best use of your time? And look at what you're doing right now. If whatever you're doing right now is not the best use of your time, the precious commodity, the most precious commodity that you have available to you, which is time, needs to be rethought. And some tasks that you're doing right now, engaging on right now, maybe they're not the ones for you. Maybe you need to teach someone how to do them. You have to delegate them, give it to someone else, so that someone else can actually get it done for you. So then you buy yourself time, and now you do have the support, and now you do have more control. The thing is, to delegate is to kind of relinquish control over certain tasks, but it's also gaining more control over your own life. The problem is that we have a control issue. We have a fear of giving up control, thinking that, we are perfect individuals and everyone else will just screw up everything if we give them that oversight or control over the tasks that we should be doing. And so oftentimes this is not the case. Remember that we are social beings. We, in organizations, we get together and we solve problems as a team. And the beauty of a team is that, yes, you cannot do everything yourself, so we have to share tasks with everyone else. And it's just by sharing these tasks that things can actually get done, that projects can be finalized. And why? Because not only because people will be employing time and energy towards that, but also because people have different perspective, because people have different talents, because people have different skills that you may not have. So let go of control. Let go of control, and that feeling of overwhelmness will certainly subside. Look at your team and see who has special talents that could be helping you right now do certain things that are making you feel this angst about life and getting things done. The help, I guarantee, is right there. Nowadays, you can also hire help. You can hire help online. I always go to Fiverr, for example, which is an amazing website in which you can find talent to solve almost any problem that you have. Think about a problem that you have. You can go on Fiverr or other platforms out there, and you can hire someone, sometimes not for a large amount of money, to solve some of the issues that you have. It works absolutely beautifully, but you have to be able to give that control up. And then finally, challenge your assumptions. Your assumptions are those software, the programming on your software that runs your life, that dictates the way you act. Sometimes our big assumptions is that if you don't answer that email after 5 seconds you have received it, then your boss is going to have a poor assessment of who you are. Maybe your boss will or not, depending on who your boss is. But oftentimes, these are just assumptions that we have about life, right? That if you're not involved in every aspect of the process, the final product's not going to be as good as you expected. Now, you may be living in a world of lies because of our assumptions, and our assumptions are there to guide us. They were built based on experiences. They were built based on important life experiences, but they can also be wrong, and they can also be deviating us from a more productive path. So it's very important that we look at those assumptions and we test them. Challenge your assumptions. We think that if we lose control over this one process or one task, or if we delegate it, all of a sudden everything is going to go down the drain, it's going to turn into vinegar. Maybe not. Try it out. Give it out to someone. See how it goes. And you will regain time, control, and support, the support that you need. Again, feeling overwhelmed is just not fun. It has many repercussions, negative repercussions in our lives, makes us less productive. We have this feeling that we don't have time, that we don't have control, that we don't have support. And let me remind you that you do have control, you do have the time, and you do have the support. Now, we have to let go of our impetus, of our instinct for control. And the more you can relinquish control, the more you can give control, the more you can trust others, the less overwhelmed you're going to feel. So good luck. If you like this message, please like this video, comment, share it, spread the love.